Hi everyone. My name is Beth Godbee, and I want to welcome you to this introductory video on career discernment: what, why, and how. In this introductory video, I will talk a little bit about what to expect across the series of presentations. I'll introduce myself as the presenter, and I'll also lead us through a grounding practice to get settled in the body and ready to do career discernment work. So what we've designed for you is a series of presentations that move through three questions, beginning with what. What is career discernment? That's the definitional work, the grounding work to motivate the process. Then moving into why career discernment matters, why it matters in graduate studies, and why it matters for the long haul over a course of career and a lifespan. Then moving into how do we do career discernment? And the how involves the practices that can be stepped into and then deepened and developed over time as practices you can come back to and do again and again as part of an ongoing discernment process. And I'll make a note here to say that these are discernment practices that can be used especially for career discernment, the focus of our work, but also for discerning all sorts of decisions. In graduate school, that means decisions around research and teaching, and it also means like life questions that you're sitting with. So know that as I talk about career discernment, I'm also thinking about discernment quite broadly. So again, my name's Beth Godbee, and I'll share three ways I come to this work. The first is as an academic. I am a former professor, someone who'd done the tenure track route and been tenured, and then made a decision to leave my faculty position to pursue something new. I'm starting a small business called Heart, Head, Hands, Everyday Living for Justice, that involves the writing and teaching and academic work I was doing, but also connects with community audiences and building something outside of institutional space now. But it means that I'm coming to this work with deep investments in lifelong education and higher education. I'm also coming with my disciplinary background, which is in composition, rhetoric, and literacy studies. And it means that when I come to ask about career discernment, I'm asking the questions that are rhetorical context, meaning why are we doing this work, with whom, for whom, when, where. I'm asking questions of process as well as what we're aiming toward, which might be thought of as the product. And I'm thinking about it in terms of the thinking tools, the research methodologies that we get in higher education. So that disciplinary training is part of how I'm coming into the work. If you're interested in learning more about my story of doing career discernment to decide to leave higher education, I've written about that in Inside Higher Ed, so you could always just Google my name, Beth Godbee, with Inside Higher Ed to learn more about my story. But I'll say that my process of career discernment has been quite involved, and it's what led me to begin to offer an e-course on career discernment that focuses on commitment-driven decision-making. And that's how I find myself here, sharing some work on career discernment with you all. The second framework and the second approach I have for coming into this work is really through a deep valuing of and experience with somatic practices, somatic body-based work. So I both come to this work as someone who has experience and practice in teaching in yoga and Reiki, and as someone who's done mindfulness-based stress reduction work and now leads meditation practices. It means that I'm always thinking about what are the knowledge systems that we carry within ourselves and how do we tap into intuitive or body-based decision-making, really getting into the guidance systems that can help us that are not just thinking-based, as so much of higher ed stays in the head, but are full-bodied, feeling-based, embodied, full holistic systems. So you'll hear me talk throughout these presentations and following intuition, like following a strong yes, and asking questions about how can your body, things like a deeper breath, signal and communicate information for decision making. The third framework and the third approach that I'm bringing into this is really a deep commitments to social justice, racial justice, and environmental justice. So I will talk throughout these presentations about what are the commitments that motivate us, that underlie all of our decision making, and that help us know the work that we're called to. This means both knowing what's especially urgent for ourselves in a personal sense and in a collective sense, and how we have relational responsibilities that will vary based on the material conditions that we're working within, our social locations, historical, intergenerational, personal, familial kind of positioning and contexts in which we are trying to be both accountable to and responsible for. So you'll hear me talk about coming back again and again to the commitments that are driving your work, and I'll share more, especially when we get into the video on why career discernment matters, of how to think about commitments. So I just wanted to underline those three perspectives, and I'll also invite you, if you'd like to connect more or ask questions, to reach out at any time. You can find me through my website, heartheadhands.com, or Heart Head Hands Everyday Living for Justice, and you can always just Google my name, Beth Godbee. So thanks for that piece of the introduction as I get to know you, and I hope you'll reach out or let me know more about you too as you have questions or want to make connection. And then I want to invite us to do a grounding practice, a practice to get into the body and get prepared to do work around career discernment. So to do this, I'm going to invite all of us to take a really comfortable position. You can look away from the video and just stretch out on the floor. If you want to remain seated, I would say to take a comfortable, grounded seat. That can mean rolling out the inner thighs to get a wider base. It can also mean making sure that all four corners of your feet are firmly planted and touching the ground. If you lie down, you might consider having something under your knees like a pillow, and you could even consider putting legs up the wall or being in a supportive position that would get your body into something that's not the typical facing the computer kind of pose that we spend so much of our time in. So as you get into this position, know that we'll be doing about a 10-minute grounding practice. And I want to invite us to begin just by noticing what's showing up in our bodies. So you're undertaking a series of presentations on career discernment. You might begin by just noticing what are the associated thoughts that come up when you think about those words, career discernment. Might also begin by just noticing what's showing up in the body, coming internal to notice sensations. These can include sensations like tension or tightness, noticing any places you're holding on to, achiness, or a feeling of being weighted down. And then in contrast, noticing any places in the body where there's a sense of ease, or gentleness or softening. Could be a place where you experience a sense of lightness. Noticing two sensations like warmth and coolness in the body. If you can, noticing where there's the most heat in the moment. And then in contrast, where you feel the cool or cold sensations in the body. Noticing the quality of the breath as well. Just noticing how shallow or deep it is. And then beginning to slow down and deepen the breath by bringing it in and up through the upper chest, and then down into the diaphragm, and down lower into the lower belly, allowing a full breath to come in and to hold that breath before slowly releasing and allowing it to exit up and out of the body, again from the lower belly, back up through the middle diaphragm, and back up and out through the upper chest. As you bring the breath into the body, imagining a sense of fresh oxygen, light energy, new air coming into the body. And then as you release, just letting go of anything that you're ready to let go of, anything that's stale or old, ready to be let go. I will be leading us through a series of questions, and I just want to remind us all that the breath can be an anchor. So coming back to the breath at any point can be a moment just to come back into the body, to be grounded with the breath, and to notice the quality of the breath and what leads to that fuller, deeper, more expansive breath. So, continuing the slow and deep breathing, I want to invite us all just to think through some steps of our career pathways. And as I ask these questions, to notice what emotions, memories, or physical sensations arise. So, thinking back, bring into your mind's eye the moment when you entered your graduate program. This could be remembering hopes or expectations you had of the time, a sense of the context at that starting point of the graduate program. You might remember a particular day and time when you started the program and what it felt like to be early on. If you can actually name for yourself some of the concrete, tangible hopes that you're bringing in. And then if you can connect those tangible, concrete hopes to physical sensations in the body, just notice where in the body those hopes reside, what it feels like to embody those senses of hope or expectation as you start. And then coming forward in time, considering this current moment, where are you personally in your graduate program, and how is your program unfolding? You might tap into a sense of unfolding for yourself personally and connect that to a sense of unfolding collectively at this time for all of us. So getting grounded in this current moment, you might think of some questions like, what's most defining of this time? How would you describe your overall energy level? So what's especially fueling or inspiring your work? And what's potentially draining your energy, draining the work? If you can, try to define for yourself a sense of purpose at this moment, what feels especially purposeful. Again, noticing physical sensations, and as you name a purpose, noticing where it resides in the body. And holding on to this current moment as a snapshot in time with information about this moment of discernment and career discernment. Now, moving forward some years into the future, again bringing into your mind's eye a moment of yourself, but this is perhaps after graduation or just starting a new role, postgraduate studies. What do you see for yourself? If you can, get as specific as you can about what the day and time feels like. You can choose a particular day, begin to imagine what time of year it is, where you are living, with whom you are relating. As you imagine that future moment, you might begin to notice what's especially motivating or inspiring for you. Or ask differently, what are you really looking forward to? Or what set of work really matters for you? As you hold on to that future moment, just ask yourself, what do you want that future work to be or to do? What are your hopes for that future moment, for that future work? So we've moved across time, backward to the start of your graduate program, to the present moment that we find ourselves in now, and then forward to a future moment. And as you think and feel across the past, the present, and the future, just ask your body if it has anything else to tell or to share with you, noticing any physical sensations that come up, perhaps naming any emotions. Perhaps even just resolving to hold on to these questions of how you're experiencing life and work, graduate studies and work, career goals, now and as they're connected to the past and as they may be connected to the future. If it feels right to you, you might set an intention for career discernment work, even as simple as I stay open to the process, or I open myself to the insights that come forward through discernment, or I pay attention to what my body has to communicate. And then just to do some deep breathing to create spaciousness for career discernment work, I'll invite us all to place our hands on the heart center and the lower belly. And then I will lead us through 3 deep breaths where we bring in a large inhale, hold it, and then release with an audible exhale that sounds like a gentle ha sound in releasing. So breathing inward. Before opening the eyes or coming out of the practice, begin just to gently move the body if that's accessible to you. You might stretch the arms up overhead or roll your wrists or ankles. You might notice if any movement like shoulder rolls might feel good, or you could also tap your body using one hand or one fist just to gently tap onto the other side. And then just notice how your body's feeling with this practice. All sorts of things can come up through doing career discernment work, which is why I think it's always important when beginning this process to think about who can support you in this work. That might include counselors, spiritual directors, friends and family, as well as staff within higher education, folks within a career counseling, career coaching capacity. But think about, you might even make a list right now of support people you'll turn to throughout a career discernment process. I'd also think coming into this work to make a list of what questions you're coming in with so that you know the questions that you really want to sit with and use discernment practices to answer. And again, I mentioned intentions, any intentions to stay open to the process or to undergo career discernment. I hope this welcome introductory video has been helpful to get grounded and to begin the process, and I will see you next over in the video on what is career discernment. Appreciate you coming with me through this journey. Thanks.